You have a gift. You have power. And with great power, there must also come great responsibility.
I carried on, tried to keep going, tried to keep being the friendly neighborhood Spider Man, because I know that's what she would have wanted, but at some point I stopped pulling my punches. I got rageful. I got bitter. I just don't want you to end up like me.
So, Marvel just announced a release date for Spider Man 4. We can expect to see him return to theaters by next July, and with this announcement, we didn't just get the release date, but also a look at the title, Brand New Day. Well, if you're a Spider-Man fan, that should immediately stick out to you. I know for me, it immediately did. Brand New Day is the comic storyline that came right after the controversial run of One More Day, which is probably nobody's favorite Spider-Man comic. I think One More Day is your genuinely favorite Spider-Man comic. There might be something wrong with you, or you're just trying to be like a contrarian. Following the events of Peter selling his marriage to Mary Jane to Manifesto in order to save Aunt May, it's definitely one of the more controversial Spider-Man stories, and subtly, No Way Home was kind of an adaptation of it.
That's not possible.
Not one-to-one, of course. It's not like doing the exact same storyline as One More Day, but it does sort of end very similarly. Through the use of magic, Spider-Man manages to erase the public knowledge of his identity and the fact that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. This happens in both One More Day as well as No Way Home. While the circumstances and reasons for why it happens are different based on the media, it does similarly have the same ending. And I find that neat that they decided to name the next Spider-Man film Brand New Day in a way fully addressing and embracing the fact that No Way Home is a subtle adaptation of One More Day. Now, the comic Brand New Day follows a fully revitalized Peter as the world has essentially reset, and he's back to being a Peter Parker that lives with his aunt and not in a relationship. This is kind of where Peter Parker is at the end of No Way Home. No one knows who he is. He's lost his identity. He's lost his friends. He's lost Mary Jane.
Your father, your tribe, your best friend.
Thank you for summing that up.
And by all accounts, the most he has now is Spider-Man. So I feel the title of Brand New Day kind of fits. Though I wonder if this is going to be more of a situation where it's just the title being used and not genuinely an adaptation of the source material that the title is from. We saw this recently with Daredevil Born Again. That show did not adapt the Born Again comic outside of just the title. It utilized that just to get people to watch, but had no intention of actually adapting the Born Again comic that it was taking the title from. So this does lead me to believe that there's a chance that Brand New Day is just utilizing the title alone and probably won't adapt any of the actual story. I wish Marvel would actually adapt more of the stories that they have instead of just giving us lukewarm references or just taking bits of it and then making it worse for the film. There are some neat things that they could do with this. I mean, Brand New Day was where we were first introduced to Martin Lee as Mr. Negative, so there's a chance that the MCU could introduce him. This brings me to my first question with Spider-Man 4. Who's going to be the villain? Spider-Man has one of the best rogues galleries to pick from. There is no question. I think next to Batman, Spider-Man has the most well fleshed out, recognizable rogues gallery. His villains are just cool, and he's got a lot to pick from. And honestly, the movies haven't adapted all of them. Not even close. While some of the best have been adapted, I still feel there's room to adapt other villains. Now, for the person that I would have wanted to have been Spider-Man 4's villain if a certain movie didn't recently come out was Kraven. I actually really wanted Kraven to be the villain of a fourth Spider-Man film. I felt that where Spider-Man and Peter Parker mentally left off at the end of No Way Home was really interesting in terms of his violence and that teeteriness of crossing the line and potentially killing someone. We do see him almost kill the Green Goblin, only to be stopped by Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Now, for me, I thought it would have been neat if we had a Spider-Man 4 that introduced Kraven as the villain to kind of further that subplot of potentially Peter Parker kind of losing himself. And the more he's just Spider-Man, the more he's losing himself. We could have had Peter Parker be introduced in Spider-Man 4 as a full-time Spider-Man, and it is wearing him down. Because nobody knows Peter Parker and he's just spending all of his time being Spider-Man, he's forgetting who he is truthfully as a person. And Peter Parker and who Peter Parker is as a person plays so much into Spider-Man. So if he starts to lose that, how does that affect Spider-Man as a character? Enter Kraven, this violent, sociopathic hunter that wants the best prey, and he wants the greatest hunt. Now, you could do one of a few things. You could either introduce that Kraven is dying and this is going to be his last hunt, which could be cool if Spider-Man 2 didn't just kind of do that, or you could just have it be that he's just looking for the best hunt. It's not his last hunt, but he just feels that Spider-Man and the people in New York are going to give him that. And I feel like I would have taken a bit of inspiration from the Amazing Spider-Man 2 video game story, which I actually kind of like. I think it's a pretty neat Spider-Man story of how like Kraven kind of trains Peter and makes Spider-Man a bit more inept and tough, so that when he fights him, it's even more of a challenge. He's not just a rookie Spider-Man, he's a lot better.
But it would be a far greater crime to have the power to help, but to refuse to act.
I feel like that could have made for an interesting Spider-Man 4. If it was up to me, that's kind of the direction I personally would have taken it. I feel you could also do something with potentially Mr. Negative. Like I said, Brand New Day is the comic run in which Mr. Negative is first introduced to the audience, so they could realistically introduce him in Spider-Man 4. He's gotten a new surge of popularity since the Spider-Man PS4 game back in 2018, so why not utilize him? It's a bit of a refresher from the villains we typically see and more known to associate with Spider-Man from like a general audience's perspective. If not Mr. Negative and Kraven, I personally think why not Scorpion?
It's on our little spider friend?
He was introduced all the way back in the end credits of Homecoming, and we never saw anything past that, and that always confused me. He could have made a cool villain. I feel like a lot of that has to do with everything past Homecoming feeling like they needed to make Spider-Man be Avengers level, and that his films need to also feel like an Avengers level threat, and that more of his grounded street level foes just didn't really make the cut. You need something mystical and big like Mysterio or essentially the Sinister Six in No Way Home. And I feel like a return to some more grounded street level villains like Kraven, Mr. Negative, or Scorpion could really help. It would allow us to flesh out more of just New York as a character for this Spider-Man. I feel like New York has just been absent in terms of its importance to Spider-Man as a character, how he operates, how his villains operate, and I feel like having the fourth movie be a lot more centered on street level villains and more of the small level crime that happens within New York, instead of it being like New York or the multiverse is going to collapse if Spider-Man doesn't save the day. I don't think that's necessary. I feel like Spider-Man stories have the ability to be smaller scale while still having big stakes personally for the character, and that's what makes his stories more interesting, is they don't always need to be some big end of the world event. Spider-Man can just be stopping some small level crime that has to do with some personal conflict either he's going through or ties in with the villains. And I feel like any of these three villains could really do that. Now, having discussed who I would potentially want for the villain, it leads me to ask the next question of what's really going to be the story of Brand New Day? Unfortunately, Marvel has been very stuck on the multiverse gimmick that it started, and I'm very, very worried that Spider-Man 4 could be a multiverse film.
Great, it's just some random guy.
Now, I know that there are some people who want it to be a multiverse film, and I don't fully understand why you would. No Way Home was a multiverse Spider-Man film. We also just had Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse and are soon to have Beyond the Spider-Verse. So for me, I don't feel the need for the fourth Spider-Man film to be multiverse.
I mean, I'm just a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, sir.
I think the multiverse has become very tired, and the way Marvel tends to use it is just very basic. They don't really do a lot with the multiverse as a concept, and they tend to just stick to very mediocre usage of it. Where the multiverse seems to be used more to just have easy cameos and be able to write themselves out of corners without actually having to put the work in, rather than actively be utilized to further explore a character and their place in a wider universe or the multiverse, essentially. I don't know. I just feel like Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse just set the bar for how a multiverse story should be and the way you utilize it to actively tell an interesting character story and not just put cameos in your film. So for those reasons, I really just don't want Spider-Man 4 to be multiverse. And then I have to ask, does it need to be? Do we really need another multiverse Spider-Man film? Like I said, we've recently gotten 3 different movies of Spider-Man that all have to do with the multiverse. And with Beyond the Spider-Verse set to come out in the next 2 years, we're going to have at least another multiverse Spider-Man film come out the year after Brand New Day. So, do we need it to be multiverse? Personally, I don't think we do. I think if they make Brand New Day another multiverse Spider-Man movie, it's just going to feel so tiresome, so overdone. It's been done already. I think you've done it enough. Move on. But it does allow for easy cameos, and it does allow for them to cash in on that Toby and Andrew money, so there's nothing to say that Marvel won't do it. I hope they don't. But there were also other things I never could have thought they'd fucking do. I felt like No Way Home ended with a perfect point to jump off from, and that we really could go in a lot of interesting directions here on. Now we could get that perfect comic adaptation of Spider-Man in the MCU. And I feel if they immediately detour this into another multiverse film, it's going to take a lot of the weight of that ending away. To me, that felt like we can now step away from the greater Marvel, the Avengers stuff, the multiverse stuff. We did that. And now Spider-Man can be more street level. He can stay close to the ground, helping out the little guy.
Yeah, just looking out for the little guy. That's what it is.
And that's what the end swing of No Way Home, at least for me, represented. And if they go back on that and immediately make it multiverse, it's just gonna feel so backtracky. So I'm very much excited for Brand New Day, but at the same time, cautiously optimistic. I know that Marvel has very much had a tendency to have its cake and eat it too recently, and they can't help themselves when it comes to a multiverse film that just shoves in cameos. And I'm very worried that Spider-Man 4 could fall down the trappings of doing that once again. I hope not, and I would like to be proven wrong, but I just feel like that's the direction they're gonna go. Anyway, what are your thoughts on Spider-Man Brand New Day? Are you excited for the film? Are you not excited for the film? Do you think that Marvel is going to make it a multiverse film, or do you think that they actually have the chance of grounding this Spider-Man and finally giving him what he needs to be on the level of someone like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man? Comment down below, let me know. And if you like this video, why not hit subscribe? I mean, it helps the channel. I love to know that people actually enjoy listening to me ramble about movies and entertainment. And yeah, I got more videos on the way, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.
Spider-Man's got some new tricks up his sleeve with the Spider-Man Triple Action Web Blaster. 3 ways to shoot webs, water, and missiles. Now all in one. Just pop in the water blasting tank and everyone gets soaked. Pop in lock in the missile blaster for rapid fire missile action.
Bullseye!
Can you handle more?